this every time when we start. That means we're good to go.
We're ready?
Yeah.
Oh, so we're live.
I forgot to give you a countdown. 5, 4.
And we are back. You know, I was absolutely crushing that article.
Just killing it.
And unfortunately, I was interrupted by the old company.
Yep.
The one that brings in a lot of the dollars. So I had to take that call, even though everyone else is on lunch right now. I had to take that call. But essentially, if you guys were here in the live show 15 minutes ago, I was explaining what is happening with China as our stock market is soaring right now because Trump is basically saying that this trade deal is happening.
Yeah.
But China's being quiet about it. But essentially, maybe what he doing here? Is he just going to repeal some of these tariffs and China's not really doing anything?
Well, the main problem we've had here is that he keeps saying that the deal is done or that he signed a deal or something like that, but we have no indication that China is agreeing to any of it.
Mm-mm.
And it reminded me of, I can't remember the guy that was debating the dude at Politicon that kept saying that he moves markets, he tweets and he moves markets, and he was talking about how this is a terrible thing. It's not necessarily a great thing that Trump continues to tweet saying that this deal is going to happen with China. Our stock market keeps moving up and up and up on the basis that this deal is going to go through. And if it doesn't go through, then you're going to be seeing a really big fall at that point in time, which is why I did buy options on a 3 times leveraged gold share that expires at the end of January, because I'm betting that there's going to be something bad that's going to happen.
So what you're saying is if you were a trader, you would short this.
I don't know if I would short it. I for sure wouldn't buy it. I do technically have what would be considered a short, I guess, because I am betting that this specific gold stock is going to pop up like crazy on the basis that the market has some type of collapse at the end of December, beginning January, something like that. Yeah. That's kind of my guess.
What they're saying is they're like, is this deja vu all over again? Because this apparently was supposed to be finalized in May, and now here we are in December.
Yeah.
And it's still not there. And China is quiet.
They are.
They not say nothing.
So really the only reason I put this article in here was to let everyone know to tread lightly as far as your feelings about the stock market is concerned. This affects everything. It affects the grain market, which affects everything because of corn and ethanol and everything. I mean, I come from a farm family. Like, it affects everything, this deal with China. And he continuously keeps saying that it's going to go through. And we have not had any indication from China that it's actually going to go through. So all I'm saying is, don't get your hopes up too high. Don't base your entire life savings on it or anything like that. Be prepared for this to be, announced that it's not going to happen, and you're going to see a massive market downturn at that point in time, because the idea that it's going to go through is kind of what they call baked into the numbers right now, is that the deal is going to go through. So if it doesn't, you're going to have a big shift in the other direction. So speaking...
I hope it does, though. Of course, like being free market people, you want free trade between countries.
Yeah, I want the deal to go through. Yeah. Well, I want just free trade overall on everything. I want them to take away these tariffs, and that's what's going to be part of the deal. So they're going to start phasing out these tariffs as they can. And I want that to happen for sure. But the market is acting like it's a certainty that's going to happen. And it really isn't. It really isn't at all. So speaking of trade, we want to talk about what's going on in the UK. Boris Johnson handily won his re-election by a lot. Well, his election, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what they call those things. It's a regular election. So the way that they do it in the UK, by the way, is they have their different parties, and whichever party wins the most seats, that's the person, like the leader of that party, gets to be the prime minister. If you could imagine whichever Democrat or Republican Party, whichever one wins the most seats in the House of Representatives, then that party gets to appoint the president at that point in time. Can you imagine? I mean, just, the tyranny that would ensue. But anyway, so Boris Johnson embarrassed the other party, the Labour Party, I believe is what they call it. His party is called the Tory. So this is from AP News from London. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Conservative Party has won a thumping majority of seats in Britain's Parliament, a decisive outcome to a Brexit-dominated election that should allow Johnson to fulfill his plan to take the UK out of the European Union next month. With 642 of the 650 results declared on Friday, the Conservatives had 358 seats, and the main opposition Labour Party 203. Johnson said it looked like the Conservatives had a powerful new mandate to get Brexit done. The victory makes Johnson the most electoral successful Conservative leader since Margaret Thatcher, another politician who was loved and loathed in almost equal measure. It was a disaster for left-wing Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, who faced calls for his resignation even as the results rolled in. Corbyn called the results very disappointing for his party and said he would not lead Labour into another election, though he resisted calls to quit immediately. Results poured in early Friday, showing a substantial shift in support to the Conservatives from Labour. In the last election in 2017, the Conservatives won 318 seats and Labour 262. The result this time delivered the biggest Tory majority since Thatcher's 1980s heyday and Labour's lowest number of seats since 1935.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's crazy. So it looks like, it looks like the Brexit thing is going to happen. They're going to separate themselves from the EU. Now,
Well, it looks like the narrow victory of the referendum that happened a couple years ago wasn't just a narrow victory, by the way. The UK people are still speaking out saying, we do not like the direction that the Labour Party is leading us with, arresting people like the comedian who taught the pug. The Heil Hitler salute and all of the crazy leftist policies that are happening. They're like, you guys are going way too far. So now we're going to make sure that we, have a populist prime minister now, and Boris Johnson, who's what are they calling him? The Trump light or something like that? He's Trumpish.
Compared very closely to Trump. And the reason is this whole Brexit thing. Now, we talk a lot about the currency, how they want to separate from the euro. They want to have the British pound. They want to be able to have their own currency. They do, but they want to move. They want to detach themselves from the euro because they believe it's unstable. They're paying money into the European Union. They're not getting that amount of money back. These other countries like Greece, places like that are defaulting or needing bailouts, and they think is going to destroy the currency. So they want to be able to separate. And that part is really good. That part's really good. Now, the other part is, the bigger part of this is the trade scenario and the citizenship and immigration scenario that's going on in this. Now, in the European Union, you can be, say, a citizen of the UK, and you can travel about freely and work and do everything in other EU countries. Same thing goes for people who are in the EU. They can come over to the UK. This is going to stop that. Now, what they said is the people who are already doing this are going to be fine. They're going to be fine, but they want to be able to control their borders from what people are coming in and out. So this obviously getting compared a lot to what happened in 2016 in the U.S., that they've got this massive influx of immigrants that are coming in. They're taking advantage of a lot of this. They've taken a lot of people from Syria and all the other countries like that. And you see stories where the people in Germany are really upset about it. People in other countries are upset about it. And that's what this election, what the whole Brexit thing they're saying is really about, is the same thing, the Build the Wall campaign that Trump ran on, that is what has actually got all these people upset. And now they're going to be able to negotiate their own trade deals between other countries in the EU and what's coming into the UK. So they're talking about putting tariffs on things that are coming from other countries in the EU to try and help businesses in the UK that are having to compete with all those other companies in the EU. So it's not necessarily all good. As a libertarian, we talk about Brexit. That's awesome. They should separate. This is great. It doesn't mean that it's all for great reasons, really, because we're free trade kind of people. We think everyone should compete, should be able to get the cheapest good, the best price for the best good that they can get, regardless of where it comes from. That's where I come down anyway. And so while I support them separating off, obviously. I'm totally fine with that. I think that, if they can, then they should do it. I don't necessarily support all of the reasons for them doing this, which is so they can put tariffs on things coming from the EU and things from Northern Ireland, which is connected. It's not all like great economic reasons that this is happening.
The problem is, here's the issue with nationalism, because that's what this movement really is about.
It is.
Hey, we are Great Britain, we're the UK, we don't identify with those other people. And it's not necessarily it's not really an ethnic thing, kind of like what Germany was in the Hitler days, but it can lead to that, by the way. Nationalism can lead to tyranny.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful about how closed off you actually are to other countries. It can be detrimental to your trade, to your other things that Nate had mentioned, where right now they have the free movement of people. They've got free trade, basically, essentially, with all the other European countries. And
basically, the EU negotiates all of the trade between all of those countries, and they all have to adhere to the same rules.
Right.
So they want to make their own.
But I also understand that, the UK's put in most of the money to the EU, and the euro's not very stable, and the international bank and the way they do banking, the way banking's done all across the world is quite nefarious.
Yeah.
So I understand them wanting to be a sovereign nation, obviously, because they are a sovereign nation, to, make sure that their people are helped over some others, let's say.
From what I saw, they pay in about $39 billion into the EU every year, and they get about $20 billion back from that. So this is people, we're, like Charlie said, we're seeing this in our country too. Like, hey, I'm paying and someone else is reaping the benefit of our money that's going somewhere. Like, we're not getting an equal benefit from our money. There's these people who are just coming in and taking advantage of this. And it's important to shed light on these things, because these countries in Europe are used as talking points for America's socialists. And it's important to realize that it's not exactly as if all the people in Europe agree with everything that's going on there. They want to be able to keep their money too. They want to be able to protect their businesses from competition too. They want to be able to protect their borders and decide who's coming in and out. People are the same, really, wherever you put them. They are all the same. So you can't just look at Europe and say those are a bunch of people who just love far leftist socialism. Any video can spotlight 10 people that agree with far leftist socialism. And you can say, oh, look, all these people think that our prices in the U.S. are ridiculous for healthcare. Okay, well, you need to do a video that's showing people from both sides, really. That you can't just look at one video and say everyone believes this. So I think that this is important to see. I mean, this guy won handily. It was an obvious referendum on the far left socialist kind of party over there, the Labour Party. And it's clear what the bulk of people want in the UK. So it's just something to shed some light on.
Yeah, it's not, I think after the Brexit vote, they were saying, oh, well, voters are uneducated and all this. No, they've doubled down.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah, there's been years now of talking about Brexit. They've had time to look up everything.
They have.
And it got harder. Like, they got even more convinced that Brexit needed to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, massive win for Conservative Party there in London.
Let's talk about Tulsi Gabbard real quick, because I put her as that's the title of the show. We'll play one of these clips.
Do we have time for Elon Musk today?
I had an Elon Musk story actually, that I didn't tell you about. Elon Musk is sending marijuana plants to the International Space Station in 2020. Which is hilarious to me, considering he got in trouble, and they had NASA had to pay like $5 million to train the astronauts on the dangers of smoking weed, and he's literally sending marijuana plants in one of the capsules up to the International Space Station.
That's hilarious. Yesterday you said we were going to talk about Elon Musk no matter what.
Well, I got in my talking points really, condensed down version. So if you want to hear what I thought about his compensation, let's talk about it at the end of yesterday's show. Go listen to it. So Tulsi Gabbard was on the Joe Rogan podcast. What was it, last week before, something like that?
2 weeks ago, I think.
I just got around to listening to it
with good old Jocko Willink.
Yeah, and I know Tulsi has a lot of views that we would agree with. We're pretty much aligned on a lot of foreign policy views with her. She actually was also talking about protecting the Fourth Amendment and how it was wrong for people to be illegally spying on people and all of that. So a lot of libertarians are like, yeah, Tulsi Gabbard, yeah, she's the closest thing to a libertarian candidate that we have. And then I was listening to this podcast, and I heard her start talking about regulating the big tech companies.
Right.
So
for those who don't know who Tulsi Gabbard is, she is a Democrat running for the Democratic primary. She's a veteran, and she's also currently in the National Guard, as well as she is a current House of Representatives member from Hawaii.
Yeah.
And she does have, like Nate said, views we agree with about non-interventionism and how the Iraq war was a bad idea. These regime change wars are a bad idea. So there are a lot of things, I would say not a lot, but there are a few things that we definitely agree upon. But she does support, Medicare for all and different things that are way too far left for libertarians to get behind. But Mr. Producer, roll clip 7.
You're showing us you're pulling strings?
Yep.
And everybody's like, well, what's going on? Nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, her
It's so
account got
dangerous.
Suspended. Whatever. No, they're interfering with democracy
Yep.
in this weird sort of semi-legal way. You could just say they violated policy. Like, what policy? What policy did you violate? Did they just cancel your ad?
They still have not told us that.
That's insane.
The policy
That's
you
the point.
violated was being a viable candidate for president of the United States of
It
America.
has to be. It has to be.
Not
It
only a
has to.
viable candidate, but one that's saying, hey, you guys are too big.
Yeah.
I'm going to break up these
Yes.
monopolies and provide the kinds of oversight and accountability that will protect the consumer, that will protect the American people, will protect fair and honest discourse, protect freedom of speech. That's the issue. And that's, frankly, that's a difference.
Okay, so they're talking about how she clearly got done wrong by Google after the first Democratic presidential debate. She was the most Googled candidate, and her Google ads were turned off for no reason. They would not allow her to run ads during that time.
No reason.
And then like the next day they turned them back on. And so it's clearly obvious that there was something going on in the background at that point in time. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, that's right. That's totally shady that they're doing that. And then Miss libertarian candidate, if that's what you guys want to believe, starts talking about how we have to break up these big tech monopolies. And all I would ask, I need someone to tell me how these companies are monopolies. I need someone to tell me that, please. That's all I'm asking.
Well, I can't tell you that
No,
because they're not.
I know.
I know. They're not monopolies.
We want to call them monopolies, but they're, words have meanings. They do.
Mhm.
And as far as the meaning of a monopoly, they are not a monopoly. Are they the biggest? Is Facebook the biggest social media company? Yeah. That doesn't make them a monopoly. That means that they're the one that most people want to use. If you want to make your own social media company, you think Facebook came in and stopped Jordan Peterson and those guys from creating ThinkSpot that they're releasing right now? Did Facebook come in and stop Dorsey from creating Twitter, or whoever actually created it?
Mhm.
Like, what's your definition for monopoly here? What is it that they have the most people that use their platform? So anyone that ever becomes popular, you're going to call them a monopoly just because they have the most people using it at that point in time?
Here's the thing: does the left have a monopoly on the CEOs of these companies all aligning with the same thing?
Yeah. So
maybe they have a monopoly on thought.
leftist ideology has a monopoly. That's what it is.
That's what it is,
Yeah.
actually.
It's the same thing with Google. We made a point the other day on the show. I searched, is Google a monopoly, on DuckDuckGo, and found the first article saying that Google was a monopoly. How did I search, is Google a monopoly, on a different search engine other than Google? And Wikipedia is one of the first ones that come up.
The first one that pops up, it says, a firm that had, in 2017, Google had revenues of approximately $110 billion. So they're saying, nah. Mm-mm.
No, Google says they're not a monopoly.
Yeah. So if
That's
you search
really
on
funny.
Google,
I searched on DuckDuckGo and it said it was. And searched on Google, it says
Yeah.
it's not. That's hilarious. That's pretty good. So anyway, all market share of something, because that does not mean that they aren't vulnerable to new competition that's going to do a better job. They're just not. I mean, Microsoft owns Bing. Are you telling me that Google's is exercising its clear monopoly force over Microsoft?
Right.
Like, you're just throwing out words that have bad connotations attached to them, and attaching them to these companies with no basis whatsoever. You do not want the government controlling these companies whatsoever. You want no regulation from the government because you don't know who's going to be running the government. This goes for people on the left and the right. If you're on the right and you're worried about these people censoring people on the right, you don't want to give the government the right to tell them what they can and can't do, because what happens when you've got a government completely controlled by the left? You're going to trust that they're going to make sure that you're not getting censored at that point in time? No, you can't do that. Same goes for people on the left.
It looks like Google has a worldwide market share of 89.96% of search engines, while Bing accounts for 5.27%. Chinese search engine Baidu's market share was 0.57%.
Yeah.
So they don't have 100% even. 87's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot of percentage share.
The
but
problem
they don't
is
have it all.
People define the new definition of monopoly as whoever the biggest market share is. That's what they'll say is a monopoly. I mean, we've talked about it with Amazon a ton of times. They've got 50% of the online retail sales, like 5 to 10% of total retail sales, and they're called a monopoly. It makes no sense whatsoever.
And I'm telling
at
you,
all.
They're not a monopoly.
I'm telling you, they're not a monopoly. Okay? So Charlie's got to go get on the call. We really appreciate you guys watching and listening today. You guys can always watch live on YouTube or Facebook. We don't know when we're going to go live, so just go on there and keep hitting refresh all day until it says that we're live. We really would appreciate it.
Yeah, you get a notification.
No, I would rather them just hit refresh on our page all day. So don't tell them. Don't tell them that. I'm going to edit that out of here. Okay. So, go do that. Follow us on Instagram at Good Morning Liberty. Follow us on Twitter at Good AM Liberty. Look at that. Those are 2 different platforms I just named, and both of them are monopolies. Okay, let's talk. And then also find us on Facebook. That's 3 now, and all of them are monopolies.
Yeah, follow us on all the monopolies.
Yeah, and then go to follow us on each one of our monopoly platforms that have they're the only person in the market, but go to all 3 of them.
And then pass go.
Yeah, and then go to gmlconnect.com if you want to find every single thing. Read some great articles on politics and economics. Charlie, take us out.
Support this show with your dollars, with your U.S. dollars. We don't accept the euro, but you can convert that over to U.S. dollars. Yeah. And you can support this show by going to our shop at goodmorningliberty.us/shop. Get yourself a T-shirt, a mug, a hoodie, because it's cold outside. It's now December, and get yourself something in return for supporting this wonderful, glorious Liberty show that you guys all love. We can't thank you guys enough for listening and sharing the show. If you do all of that, then we will be back here again on Monday to do this all over again. Hope you guys have a good day and a good morning, Liberty.